Hey, what's up you guys? It's Zach with PCBros. Today we have another budget PC build. This PC is basically the bare minimum you need to play your favorite games as well as light streaming. So let's get into some of these specs and see what this PC is all about. Starting off this build, we have the classic, the i3-12100F, a great budget CPU. And then to power all of our favorite games here, we have the RTX 3050. Then we're rocking a terabyte of Gen 3 NVMe. We got the only 16 gigabytes, 3200 megahertz. And then we have a B660M Pro RS. We use this quite a bit. Then we got the Seago TEP 80 Plus Gold 650 watt. And could it even be a PCBros budget PC without an Apevia Prodigy? Here's all the tools you're gonna need for this PC build. Starting off, we got a Phillips screwdriver, got one of these, some wire cutters, a box opener, box cutter, and then a PH1 Phillips screwdriver for the M.2 screws, a ton of zip ties. And if you're not too sure where to get any of the tools, I'll have a link down below for the Amazon affiliate link. So now that we have everything we need, let's get right into building. First up, I'm gonna do some case prep. Make sure when you're taking out the case, if you have one of the plastic, like the staticky covers on it, we're just gonna take one of the metal screwdrivers and kind of take some of that static out, because that will shock you. And we're going to take off the front glass panel as well as the back panel and get this case prepped for the motherboard. And every case should come with hardware. So I'm gonna take this and put this to the side, don't lose it. And the first thing I'm going to do here is orientate the fan differently. This cable is kind of in the way, and that could get in the way of the motherboard. Some cases don't have this problem, so if you do not, you can skip this part. But I'm just going to unscrew the 4 screws, and I am going to tilt it this way. So this is coming more up, and now the motherboard can go in easily. Time to put the screws back. And now we're gonna get the motherboard set up. So we can put this to the side for now, get the motherboard out. You're going to take the box cutter, make sure we don't wanna rip the box in case we do have to return it. We're going to find the IO shield, put that to the side. It comes with some M.2 screws. We'll probably need one of those. And then the motherboard. So if you have a build mat or something like it, you can just take the motherboard, and it usually has some protection on the bottom, and place it on. But if you don't have any protection, it's just on a wooden surface. To avoid scratching it, a lot of people like to build it on the box. Getting the motherboard ready for this build is gonna be extremely easy. There's only 3 things that we're gonna need to do. The first is gonna be the hardest, we'll get that out of the way, installing the CPU. Now, I wouldn't say it is very hard. It's gonna be the hardest out of all of the things that we're gonna be doing here. So on any of the boxes for your parts, I wouldn't recommend ripping them open in case you need to return one if one didn't work. Push down on the lever, pull it out, and we are going to open right here. Now, sometimes on the cover here, it will have the arrow to show which orientation we need to put this CPU. Anytime you hold the CPU, make sure you just hold it on the 2 sides. You never want to touch the bottom. And the CPU is going to have an arrow on it as well, here on the bottom left. We're going to match the 2 arrows, placing the CPU carefully and then closing it. Now, when you push this lever down, this usually pops right off. We will no longer need this part. For this build, I'm going to be installing the stock Intel CPU cooler that comes with it. Now this has thermal paste pre-applied. Make sure yours does as well. And on the motherboard, there are 4 holes. We're going to line up the CPU with those 4 holes. I like to put this cable on the top right so it lines up nicely with the CPU port. So now that it's all lined up, we're going to apply some pressure on the top, and then going alternating, we're gonna just push it down and you're gonna hear the click. It's gonna lock in place. I'm in a weird angle here. There we go. If you do not hear a click on each one, it is not in. Usually on the top right, you will see CPU fan 1, and you are going to plug in the fan to there. Take the excess and just kind of tuck it in the middle here. The RAM's gonna help block some of that. So now we're gonna open up and install the RAM next. Very easy to do. Now on this motherboard, we only have the switches here on the top. Sometimes you're gonna need to push switches down on the bottom as well, but we're actually going to be going here on the second slot and the fourth slot if you're counting 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is not exactly how that works, but just for the simplicity, we're gonna be going here on slot 2 and 4. Now on pretty much any PC part or thing that you do when building a PC, you're going to hear a click to help confirm that you did it right and you put it in right. The RAM has a notch here that should line up with the notch in the slot. So there's only one way this RAM can go. We're going to put pressure on both sides until you hear a click on both sides. Then we got the next one, and that is in. Last but not least, we are going to be installing the NVMe. Now, there is 2 ports on this motherboard, and we're going to make sure we install this in the right one. If you are not sure, on the motherboard's website, it will show you which port supports what. This is a Gen 3 NVMe, which I know is supported here on this bottom one. And it looks like the standoff is already in it as well. We're going to take one of the M.2 screws that we got from the motherboard and lose it apparently. That's why you need a clean workspace. I have found it. And then grab a magnetic tip screwdriver, a smaller one. And then you are going to insert the M.2 on one side as you push down, screwing on that M.2 screw. Now the motherboard is good to go, and we are just about ready to put this in the case. But first, I'm definitely gonna need to clean up a little bit. Before we can put the motherboard in the case, we wanna make sure there is a standoff for each of the holes on the motherboard. I have 3 here on the left, 3 on the middle, and then no standoffs here on the right. So I'm gonna have to add a standoff for the 2 holes on the right here. And these come into the hardware pack that came with your case. 2 of these screws right here. And then we're going to get this, I like to put it in and push and then install it where I want it. That just makes it a little bit easier. And then do it here on the top. Now I noticed a small issue here. I installed the M.2, but it is blocking one of the holes. So if you have this problem too, I'm gonna go ahead and take it out. That will make it easier, and add it back after because it's so easy to do. So now I'm going to lay the case flat, and we are going to add the I/O shield. I like to take some of these tabs and pull them back because sometimes those will get in the way. And I know the orientation pretty well on these, so I know that this is the way it goes. But make sure you match it up with the motherboard and you're putting it the right way. Now these are pretty easy to install. You just line it up and push each of the corners, and it will just kind of like click in there. We're going to take the motherboard and gently line it up with all those standoffs and make sure it is pushed in to the I/O shield here. To lock this motherboard in place, we are going to use these screws that look like this. And I like to start with the middle hole because this locks it in place right away so it lines up all the holes. And then I'll do a corner here, and then that bottom right, and then I'll keep repeating until I have all the screws done. I went ahead and added the M.2 back as well. Now we got everybody's favorite part of the PC build, plugging in all of the necessary things to the motherboard from the case. I will go over each one of these. It does not matter what order you start. So you will find these in the back of the case. Now the back of the case will probably look like a little bit of a mess now, and I like to go ahead and cable manage things as I go. So I'll go ahead, zip tie the top, keeping all of these in place. I'll probably add one more zip tie right here. I would really try to utilize the zip tie hooks. They're there for a reason. And then I will snip off the excess as I go as well. And we are going to be installing all of these. This is the USB 3. It usually goes right here through that top hole and then lines up right there on the motherboard. You can put it in either one because it looks like this one was actually in the middle, but I usually like the top because then it will stay here with the 24 pin and it'll look pretty good. So we have one down. I will save the front panel for last. We are going to install the USB and then the HD audio. Now the HD audio usually always goes right here. So I know there's a hole right there. Make sure you're installing the right one. It will say it on the thing. They will look very similar though. So I will feed it through, and I know HD audio is always in that bottom left. Press it in. These can only go one way. So you don't have to worry about installing it the wrong way. There is a hole that is blocked. So make sure you have it the right way before you push in so you don't bend the pins. And next up, we have the USB. That can go in either hole because we have these 2 ports right here. It can go in either one of those. Next up, we are going to feed all of the front panel cables through this hole right here because the front panel will be on that bottom right. It's usually somewhere around there. And we will look for one called LED switch or LED SW. This one we do not need right now. We will feed that one back through. That will be to power the LED switch and change the colors later. I'll show you where that goes. So this is the front panel, and this is how you want it to go. This is the only way that you can install this for it to work. It also shows it on the bottom of your motherboard here. I don't know if you can see that if you're not sure, but I will have a graph on screen to help. So I like to start with the bottom left and then go right and work my way up, because sometimes these get tight and your fingers can get in the way and it'd be hard to install. So I like to do that just to make it easier. So bottom left, we got the HD LED. And then when you're installing it, I like to go words facing down. And then we got reset switch that is going to go right next to it on the right, pushed in, and they should be touching each other. They should be very close. And then on the top here, usually they come separated like this. We're going to do power LED plus and then minus, words facing up. And then to finish it off here on the top right, we got the power switch, words facing up right next to the plus and the minus. I'm going to pull all those cables through. And now I believe we have everything installed here that we can do. So let's move to the power supply. We're gonna clean up a little bit before the power supply goes in, because when we put that power supply in, because it is not modular, there's going to be a lot of excess cables, and it will get messy if we don't start doing this. So I'm gonna put 2 zips here just to keep all of this one. Gonna snip, snip, and the power supply will go right here. So I'm just going to tuck those cables back so we have room, and we'll slide that right in. Again, make sure you don't destroy the boxes. You might need them later. Also, keeping the case box, even after you've built your PC and it all works, just helps with resale value if you ever wanted to sell it again, especially if you sell to us, because that just helps with shipping, and companies really appreciate that. And this comes with some zip ties, which we already have plenty. And then it comes with the power supply screws. The motherboard also comes with them, so you can use either one. We're going to go fan facing down with the plug going out. Slide it right in, and then we are going to line it up with the holes, and then we are going to lock it in place. It's just a good practice usually when working with PC parts to screw alternate sides first, so you're not putting too much pressure on one side. All right, so we've installed the power supply. I'm gonna do a little cleanup as I go too. A clean workspace helps you stay organized and not lose any PC parts. And now we have a big mess of cables here. So we are going to plug in the necessary ones that we need and then cable manage the rest. So I'm going to snip that. And I would always keep this if you have like an RGB hub, Molex or something like that. I would always have this on the furthest most layer of cables so it's easy to get at the end. And that would avoid cable tangling as well. I usually don't, these just get in the way sometimes. So I'm actually going to put that up. This comes with way more cables than we will actually need. I will show you the ones we will need here. We will need the 24 pin, thick boy. We will need 1 PCIe cable. This one comes with 2. Sometimes GPUs need more power. SATA, which this one comes with mini. Usually the SATAs are chained in like this, have multiple on the same. And then we will need the CPU cable. Just like on the other cables that we installed, you can do this in any order. I'm going to go, you see it's already getting kind of crazy. I will go CPU cable first. This will always go in that top right hole right here, because the CPU port will be on the other side, and we will connect it with the hook going up, and you should hear a click, pull through, and we are good there. I will cable manage as I go. I will use this top hook to keep the CPU cable right here on that right side. There is another hook right below it. I'll be using that as well. And this keeps the cable management looking really, really neat. Bam and bam. All right, cool. So next up, we got the 24 pin, and you can even zip tie this. I'll probably do that because there's all these, but it will go here on that top hole. And this one has a hook too, and that hook will line up with the lip on the port here. So we will line that up, and usually this one takes the most pressure out of all of them. So you're going to push in, and then wiggle and push up and down until it feels very secure. Now I'm going to take this crazy cables from the 24 pin, and I am going to attach them to the other ones here. All right, with all this excess cables, they're just going in the basement. And now we will do the PCIe cable. I just want to check the GPU, see how many I need. Oh, I'm goofy, I didn't even check. This one actually does not require external power, so we won't be needing that for this one. But if so, you're going to count how many are on the front here, and then feed those through if you do have a GPU that needs that external power. So all we need now is one of these SATA cables. We will take everything else, fold it up. You can zip tie it if you want, but I feel like that makes it a little bit hard if you wanted to get back and get a specific cable. And then we are going to plug one of these SATA into that RGB hub here that is powered by SATA. This can only go one way, so once you have it lined up, add a little bit of force and it should click right in. Now we're going to stick this RGB hub to the case. So we're going to take off the adhesive and stick it pretty much wherever you want, wherever makes most sense for you. It's gonna go right here, push down on both sides, hold for a few seconds. And then we are going to take the LED switch from earlier that I mentioned, and there will be connected to the hub, the LED switch. Now this one has 2 pins on one side, and you wanna make sure you connect this to both of those pins. It's gonna be a little off center when you plug it in. Now I like to take a zip tie and go in between here and then go around and zip tie these together, because there is a chance, especially in shipping, that will come undone. And then snip and put those wherever you can fit them. And then we are going to put on the back panel, screw that panel back in. And then all that we have left to install is the GPU. I'm going to do a little cable tucking here because some of them got loose. On the back, there's usually some sort of locking mechanism, keeping that GPU, the lanes in place. So we are going to keep that screw on and we're just going to slide it back, and we are going to count how many lanes our GPU has. It's got 2. And we know we're going to be using that top port, that GPU port. So we're going to take off the top 2 lanes. That's where it's gonna end up lining up. So one of them requires a screw. So then you'll unscrew that. And then for the other one, we are going to push it in and then wiggle it. And then that one just breaks off. You cannot put that back on. So make sure you pick the right ones before you start breaking them off. And then we will take off any protective plastic, because it will be hard to do so once the GPU is in. And then we will insert the GPU like a game cartridge. Oh, there is some protective plastic on the metal here as well. Push in that lever, line up the GPU, push in until you hear a click. Now we are going to close that again, tighten it so that is not going anywhere. And then we will take the screw that was in there before and then screw the top, and you are done. So I'm gonna plug this in and see if everything works. Moment of truth here. That's a good sign. The RGB switch works. So we know there's no major issues right away. The RAM is turning on. Let's plug this baby in and download some games and see what the benchmarks can do.
Starting off in GTA 5, this is a pretty old game at this point, but we still love to benchmark it because it is that mid-range push on a GPU. You still get a good idea, and it has a good built-in benchmark. So right now on high settings 1080p, it's really having no problem with this game. You'll see later though that it does get some random frame drops, but you could probably keep tweaking with the settings to really get rid of that. But really for the most part, GTA 5 will have no problem running and streaming on this PC. Now I know a lot of our customers enjoy GTA 5 mods. Those are a little bit harder to run, so just keep that in mind when getting a budget PC. That benchmarks on GTA will be a little bit different than if you are running the benchmarks. Now taking it up a notch, we are going to Cyberpunk on medium settings 1080p. Now this is pretty much pushing that GPU and the CPU to the max. We are rocking about 70 frames per second here, which is pretty good and still playable. We will try this again on low settings and see how it goes, but the frames usually get a little bit higher here at this part of the auto benchmarks, so it's not strange to see it go up to 90 right here. You'll see it probably drop back down here at the end of the benchmarks. But let's compare this to how it does on low settings. For low settings, we are rocking 80 frames per second right off the bat. This really might not be enough of a performance difference to go all the way down to low settings. Obviously, you can make that decision for yourself and see if you want that extra 10 frames a second on this game. Maybe going down to low settings would be good. We are now hitting the 100 frames per second point, but again, it is in that middle part of the benchmarks, and we usually see it spike up. And as far as first-person shooters go, the Finals on medium settings 1080p was doing surprisingly well. This is a more demanding esports title. We are pretty much consistently staying around 100 frames here. I noticed no lag or weird frame drops. It was doing just fine. So obviously some games are going to be doing better than others on the system. This is pretty budget and pretty much the bare minimum you would want to go to stream as well. And when we mean light streaming, we don't mean streaming hardcore games with servers and mods and having an intricate stream with a lot of scenes. This will be pretty budget streaming. You won't really be able to push things to its max, but you are getting a budget PC. And if you don't care about streaming, this is overall a great gaming system. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you found this video helpful and understand a little bit more of the budget gaming scene and what the RTX 3050 can do. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what other PC builds you want me to build next.